Abso-fucking-lutely.
If I may, what made you decide to do the transition?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've had kind of a wild path of careers and different things. I used to actually dance professionally. I studied ballet for 20 years and did that professionally after university, and then found yoga, dove into meditation, Eastern philosophy. I became pretty obsessed with all of that and started teaching yoga full time, was teaching on YouTube with Yoga TX and teaching all over Austin and then Portland. And through that whole journey, I knew that I wanted to be doing something more. I loved teaching yoga. And at first I thought that that was my path, but eventually I found out that I really liked working with people one-on-one, like with private clients and healing the body and the mind. But I noticed so much within myself, just this deep discomfort with my sexuality. And in yogic philosophy, one of their like paths to enlightenment is celibacy. And they, like my teacher, I studied with Padma Karma Yoga in India. And my teacher, Padma, she always says, yes, celibacy is one thing. And that's for kind of like monks versus there is the householder path. So yes, you can be having kids and having some form of sexuality, but it wasn't something that was really talked about. And even as I was studying in India, I just noticed there was still like some shame in the culture around like women's bodies and even like menstruation. You can't go to temple if you're menstruating, all these different things, which I totally respect within that religion, but it just kept bringing up a lot around women's empowerment specifically for me. And then it pretty much ended up, I was just feeling super stuck in my own sexuality. I felt so uncomfortable. I didn't really know how to express myself. I had lost my libido. I was so lost, and I started opening up to more friends about it. And so many people, especially women and non-binary individuals, were saying, yeah, I feel the same way. I think that's just kind of how it goes if you're in a long-term relationship, or I think that being unsatisfied with sex is just kind of how it is if you don't, like, your partner doesn't know what you're doing and you don't know how to ask for what you need. So through that, it just kind of lit this fire in me that knew that I wanted to be helping people with this. And as the universe works, within a couple months, I landed myself in a Tantra workshop class where we were diving deep into all these different tantric techniques, which is, the philosophy is very similar to yoga and a lot of it is intertwined. But the tantric philosophy believes that deep presence with pleasure and sexuality is one tiny piece to the path of enlightenment. I think a lot of people believe that Tantra is just like all about sex, and it's actually not at all. It's just one piece of it. And so that's kind of a long-winded way of saying I had felt really uncomfortable with it, so I wanted to help others feel more comfortable.
I understand that Tantra is something like, I think the people are just focusing on the, sexual part of it. I think it's a good thing that you pointed out that it's just a teeny tiny part of, it's part of the journey of enlightenment and all, and being empowered. And that's why I'm really excited and at the same time, I'm a bit scared to talk about this because I feel like I don't know anything. Like, of course, whatever knowledge I know about sexuality and intimacy, it's based on magazines, and usually it's all about pleasuring the partner and not yourself. Plus, I mentioned the culture is very reserved, and to do this is very bold. It's a bold move for me, and but I don't care because we're here to educate people. We're here to educate ourselves, and especially women. Or actually, it doesn't matter gender wise. It doesn't matter as long as you're working for yourself. That's what's important.
Yeah.
Right.
First off, celebrating you in bringing this topic to your show, because I was so scared to dive into this and be like publicly like, I'm a sex coach. Hope everyone's okay with that.
When people find out that you're a sex coach, what's the first and maybe one of the wrong impressions that they have for your job? Like, are there any like misunderstanding? Like, is it something that you teach me to do this in bed, or is it because I think, as I said, people don't have a deeper understanding of what sexuality and intimacy is, so probably there are some misconceptions.
Yeah. I would say most people always like pause and are surprised, and then they say they always are like, how did you get into that? And then it's either this, it goes both ways. It's either like, okay, like end of story, they don't want to know anymore. That's it. Or it's like a million questions of like, oh my gosh, tell me more, can you help me with this? I've always, and like so many people just tell me their stories around it, which I love that part of my job. I honestly haven't had a ton of like misconceptions yet, which is good, because I bet there are maybe a lot out there. I would say, yeah, one thing people just, I think being an intimacy and empowerment coach, like I use that title. Sometimes I just say sex coach because it's easier, but I say intimacy and empowerment because it takes away the narrative that I'm just focusing on sexuality or sex with my clients. And it's much more about feeling empowered with themselves so that they become more intimate with all of life, not just like partnership. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, that's the best, I would say, description on so that people will see the entirety of your career, right, or of your profession. Can we say that intimacy issues is the same with sexual blockage?
I'm going to reframe because I don't like the word issue or like broken, because so often in our society, it makes sense that you said it that way, because coming back to the tabooness, we are taught so often in patriarchal society that something is wrong with us and we are broken. And so many of us think that if something is slightly different from anyone else, it's an issue. Or if I don't look exactly like them, I'm broken. Versus I like the word blockages. Like there's some resistance or there's some blockages to intimacy or sexuality. I would say blockages around intimacy and sexual blockages can be very intertwined, but they can also be separate. I think what I see most often in clients is when it comes to sexual blockages, there's some deep pain has not been fully seen, has not been fully expressed, and needs to have permission to be moved through in order for the client to be sexually expressed. I would say intimacy issues could be somewhat of the same thing, but instead of it being in a sexual setting, it could be not knowing how to simply be vulnerable, not knowing how to go deep with someone, or knowing how to open up. Did that answer that?
Yes, totally.